So what I will do is talk a little bit historically of how this really got started, why Harvard got so engaged with this, and the process for us really began in 2011 going into 2012 with conversations with our partner down the street, MIT, the Massachusetts Institute for Technology. And in May of 2012, Harvard and MIT got together and announced the partnership known as edX. Prior to the announcement of edX, where this came from at Harvard was that a committee of faculty drawn from all of Harvard schools, a committee called the Committee on the Year 400, the 400th anniversary. It was a committee that was called together to debate, when Harvard turns 400, what should we look like? Right? In several decades, when we turn 400, what should we look like? And that committee realized that the opportunity of the internet and technology was something that we must address and we must use. And so from those conversations, when the opportunity to partner with MIT came about, it was the perfect time for us to commit to this kind of principle of online learning. So with edX, from the very beginning, there was a commitment that it is a not-for-profit effort. There are MOOC providers that are for-profit efforts. We were committed to the notion of access for free, at least for a significant amount of the material, so that it is not-for-profit. It is open source, so that the software would continue to evolve based on open source contributions, and that Open edX, as it's called, would be available to the world. It was an opportunity to lift global learning all around the world, to improve access to high-quality content. Very importantly, it should be informed by research. Because as I'm sure you have heard from your Teaching and Learning Center, for far too long, teaching and learning has been sort of an effort where an individual professor will think, this is how I want to do something, so it must be good, right? While as we know in research, everything is based on evidence. And there is now the increasing realization that teaching and learning improves based on evidence, and likewise, what we do in online learning must be improved based on evidence. It is inclusive of other universities and institutions, hence the formation of the edX Consortium, and even though it is not for profit, there is a commitment to it being financially sustainable. Like any not-for-profit organization, it must sustain itself financially eventually, or else it will not continue into the future. So a simple way of thinking of edX is that it is ultimately a software platform. It's a software platform for schools to mount their online courses, their online learning experiences. But just as importantly as the platform, edX is also a consortium. It is a group of institutions that have come together with a common commitment to quality, the importance of access, and the importance of research. So now there are many institutions around the world that have joined the consortium, and we're thrilled that both Harvard and Kyoto are members of the edX Consortium. And this gives us an opportunity to share and learn from each other and work together to really have the maximal positive impact. But so this is what edX represents. But then what is HarvardX? So each institution that joined the edX Consortium has a University X at their home institution. So there's Kyoto UX, HarvardX, MITx, for example. So in the very beginning, the conception of HarvardX was that it was everything at Harvard, the content we developed, the faculty that taught that content, the pedagogy, the technology that we built to contribute to the edX platform, and the research, design, and data, everything that was designed for mounting on edX, what was made at Harvard was HarvardX. That was the institutional organization. But that has changed. What we realized is that the creation of HarvardX triggered so much interest at the university, so much interest from faculty. It became such a source of conversation and debate that we realized that Harvard X itself is in fact more of a university-wide strategic initiative focused on using technology and online learning to transform education. So that what Harvard X now represents is a much larger umbrella, of which edX is one of our crucial, most important channels, but there are multiple channels, including channels which are on campus in terms of working with our own students as well. So that one way of thinking about it is that everything that Harvard X does around the creation and the research on online learning, these channels include the open courses, which we mount on edX. It also includes our School of Continuing Education, which focuses on, for example, executive education, professional education, the lifelong learning, as they call it, market. And it also includes all of the courses that we have on campus. So that very quickly, instead of having Harvard X simply focus on the world, as if that's not large enough, Harvard X also focuses on different audiences, including our own students, as well as audiences that would fall into the professional education, for example, in medicine, in business, etc., the so-called continuing education audience. And so it rapidly became clear that we were a much larger kind of strategic initiative. Because in the beginning, so I became the faculty director of Harvard X at the very beginning, and I remember the question was, if we build it, will they come? Will anyone be interested? Will the faculty be interested at all? And what we discovered is that the way we approached faculty changed their view of what online learning could be. And now Harvard X's biggest problem is that we have too many faculty that want to do something in comparison to the capacity that we have to meet their needs. So in the beginning, the idea was that Harvard X might be drawn from staff from multiple organizations at Harvard, and that it wouldn't be its own thing. We quickly realized 3 to 4 months in that we had to stand up our own organization. So that, for example, as of today, Harvard X has on the order of over 50 full-time employees with a surrounding group of about 100 to 150 part-time employees that work with us. We have now mounted 60 courses online. We have worked with over 100 faculty, and right now we're working actively on 63 courses and modules that are currently in development. And we still cannot meet the desire of our faculty to do things. So, the MOOC is how Harvard X began. The massive, the open, the online course. By the second month of Harvard X, we discovered that it does not have to be massive. That in fact, you can implement your learning experiences for your own students or for a very small cohort. So our first course from the law school on copyright law was focused on 500 students. Why just 500? Why so selfish? Because the pedagogy of the course was that Terry Fisher, the professor, wanted a learning experience in copyright where every group of students had an artist, a writer, a lawyer, a physician, a scientist, so that he could internationally bring together specific cohorts. And based on his pedagogy, we could only do it initially for 500. We now have it scaled up to 3,000, but 500 was how we started it. So it did not have to be massive. What we also realized, based on the copyright experience, it doesn't have to be open. There may be pedagogical reasons that it should be restricted to a particular group of students. Ultimately, for financial sustainability, there may be financial reasons why you want to have a special section that's restricted, that might have some form of credit, that would have cost associated with it. So it doesn't have to be open. And what we also quickly realized is that when you think about what learners need in the world, it also doesn't have to be a course. A course at Harvard is 12 to 14 weeks long. There are very few people that have a career that can spend 14 weeks focused on a course every single week. So what are we left with is the O. And since Oprah Winfrey already took the O, we can't call it the O. So what we realized is that the emphasis remains online. The emphasis, of course, is on learning. And right now in Harvard X, we focus on so-called online learning experiences. They don't have to be courses. It's a principle of what we call modularity, that shorter experiences are in fact more effective for many learners in the world, and that even our courses are developed in modules. So they are released in short pieces. It has a huge number of benefits. First of all, for faculty, it's much easier to do a short module of maybe the equivalent of 3 to 6 weeks. But for the learner, it allows you to mix and match the modules that interest you, and it allows you to ultimately, in the future, have an experience that's more tailored to specifically your needs and your interests. So Harvard X is very much focused on a very flexible image or model of an online learning experience. So that we feel this is a very important way to help expand access to education worldwide. What the world needs aren't necessarily courses, they're online learning experiences of variable length. From the very beginning, we were committed that this would enhance teaching and learning, not just online, but also on campus. Hence the decision, for example, to connect the Derek Bok Center for Teaching and Learning and Harvard X at the head, so that I head both of those organizations, but also to advance teaching and learning through research, so that through what we learn from the research we do online, not only do we understand learning online better, but we also understand how we can teach our students on campus better. And if time allows, I'll give you some examples of what that means. So now, almost 2.5 years later, without question, Harvard X has been a convening opportunity for the university. This has been a catalyst for bringing together faculty to discuss teaching and learning like I've never seen before. I've been at Harvard for almost 25 years, and I've never seen this many faculty come together to discuss teaching and learning. Harvard X is representative of all of Harvard schools. So it's not just the arts and sciences, it's the law school, the medical school, the business school, the School of Public Health, the School of Design, the School of Government. All 12 Harvard schools are represented on Harvard X. And there is an emphasis with the guidance of all the schools on what we define as quality. It must be Harvard quality if it has the Harvard name on it. It must have some innovation in the pedagogy, in the content that is worthwhile, and we feel it must have a significant impact, be it on campus or at specific audiences around the world. So there's a faculty committee of 25 faculty, which I chair, drawn from all of Harvard schools, that looks at every proposal from a faculty member and makes the decision on whether or not it's appropriate for Harvard X.